it's just, our generation, I feel like we deal with a lot of internal struggles with identity. So I feel that a lot of younger people, even younger than us, are trying to fit in because they want that type of attention.
Yeah.
And so they're losing who they are in order to gain the attention. But really, I feel like it doesn't end well, not in my opinion.
Welcome back to Let's Get Candid. I'm your host, Mary Fulford, but definitely call me Ziggy.
And I'm your co-host, Loren Hall, but you can call me Lori. So we're back yet again. And Ziggy, I want to know, how was your week? How did things go this week?
This week was a bit of a roller coaster, I would say, of emotions. I think it started off pretty good. And then I got to this point where I felt like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed and needing to decide whether or not, how much to take on, because I feel like I just keep taking on a lot of stuff, because the idea of always doing something and the idea of success and achieving my goals, I think has become this big thing for me, right? Yes. But at the same time, trying to find that really sweet spot of balance where
you can live your life and still achieve the goals you want to meet.
Exactly.
I think for myself, it's crazy. My week went by fast, but it felt slow at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Like, you ever had those where it's just like the days keep getting longer, but you're getting less time out of your day? I don't know. It was crazy. And only just on Friday, yesterday, where someone dragged me out. They were like, Loren, where are you? I want to go to 7. It's like, well, I'm passing 7 right now. Stop, go straight there. And I was supposed to go for one drink, but I ended up out until 11 o'clock. So, I think moments like that, you need them.
You do.
It was just too much. So.
A moment to unwind. Definitely.
So we also want to know how the week went for our guest today, none other than Cyprianna Green. So, Cyprianna, tell us, how was your week? How are things?
My week. So I had an amazing week. My fiance and I went through a series of premarital counseling with my pastor at church. Nice. So that was definitely refreshing. There was so much that I learned in the series with Pastor Gold. And it was great, close to my fiance, close to our spirituality, growing as a couple. So it was a nice balanced week for me.
So you already mentioned that you have a fiance. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations.
Introduce yourself to our people and let them know who you are.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Cyprianna Green. I was born and raised on the island of Grand Turk, came to Provo, went to the collegiate, went to University of Miami, where I acquired my bachelor's degree, master's in public health epidemiology, and also a master's in business administration. So I came back. I started a couple businesses. One, which is my baby, Bēchë. I sell swimwear here. I design and sell swimwear that is based on our culture and representing Turks and Caicos as a country through the swimwear designs. Yeah.
That's great.
Amazing.
So,
thank you.
How have things been with Bēchë so far?
Well, Bēchë is, let me tell you, it's definitely a labor of love, but I will say that things have not been easy with Bēchë. Many years I was like, you know what, should I be doing this? This is just too much. Yeah. But you know what, because I love it so much and I love the vision that I have for the brand, I just continue with it and release collections every year. But the plan is to get into more hotel boutiques for the brand, to develop more of a brand recognition locally, regionally, and internationally. So I'm just taking it one step at a time, hoping for the best.
That's great.
I think we all go through that phase where we're like, should I really be doing this? Because the pressure from doing the things that we love feels so intense. But as we go along the process in the long term, we start to see the results, and we're like, I get why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But even I would say the pressure as a woman. Doing things, being in certain areas and having to push harder because, they tend to say it's a man's world. We're a very, I think, matriarchal society, but still we have to push and prove to people that we can do these things, So with that, I think we're going to have to talk about different topics, particularly oversexualization, femininity, being, the kind of woman you want to be, but also getting into the kind of businesses you want to strive for. So I think we could talk more about it once we get back from break. So don't worry about that. We'll be back.
This message is brought to you by Isla Mystique.
And welcome back to Let's Get Candid, where we have authentic and transparent conversations. So when we left off, we were just about to touch on our topic, embracing femininity. When does it become oversexualized? And my co-host Ziggy was just about to dive into what she defines as oversexualization.
So for me, I think oversexualization is really just seeing women as these sexual objects, right? As something to be desired to have, and not necessarily for the substance behind it, but just for the pleasure of the moment, per se. What would you say it is?
Gosh, for me, I would have to say it's trying to transform what people are trying to present as embracing themselves, be it you're embracing your body, and people transform that into you having motives that aren't so positive. Like you are trying to tempt, the Bible.
Seduce.
Yeah, seduce. The Bible talks a lot about temptation and things like that. So I think going against those, the initial intention, What would you say for...
Well, I think our society today definitely oversexualizes a lot of things that people do. But I will say on the flip side, we do have a lot of oversexualizing that happens. And I mean, look at the poses on Instagram. Like everything is about, look at me. Like, it's all about you being a sex symbol. And if you're not a sex symbol, then you don't necessarily have that value in terms of social media, and you're not going to get those likes. So it's a really unfortunate climate that we're in right now. But I definitely think that it is possible to strike a balance between your femininity and being sexy, but not necessarily being trashy or salacious.
Yeah. I was going to say another word. I realized TV.
Certain things you can't say on air.
Oh, right.
But, I completely agree with that. We are living in a time, like you said, social media. So many people are on the internet, and so many people are pushing this kind of thing of you have to have this body type, you have to have these poses, wear these kind of clothing to make some sort of impact or to be someone that is well known. Where I think at some point you get jaded,
Yeah, for sure. And with me, so because I sell swimwear, my business requires me to pose in swimwear in order to push the brand, right? But the average person would look at my social media and they would see the swimwear photos, but they wouldn't know that I'm mostly in athleisure. I'm mostly wearing like sweats or very, covered clothing. I'm in like leggings all the time. So I think social media plays a big role in kind of like creating more of like a judgy climate of who people actually are according to what they post. And that can be a dangerous area.
And then in this body image, right? So like Loren touched on, so it makes you idolize certain body types and then make other persons feel like my body type doesn't match this. So I'm not valued enough because I don't look like this. And, I don't have this particular, lips. So we have all these different things. We have the BBL, you have the lip injections, right? Because people are trying to fit into this idea of what's accepted and what people considered to be beautiful.
Do you realize, though, that everyone starts to look the same?
Yeah. So there's no authenticity.
Everyone is looking the same. Everyone has the same body. I'm pretty sure. The same size butt, the same size boobs, the same no waist. I mean, it's very unfortunate because I feel like beauty to me, though, is being naturally beautiful, but being different.
Yeah.
I feel like when you can see the same person a million times, you don't necessarily stand out. So I don't know if I necessarily consider that beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
would ask though, would that force people to have to either get to know you, to understand like what makes you unique from this batch of women who all look the same, or is it just getting to a point now where people are just like, you know what, she looks like what's popular, so I'm going to go for this.
Trendy.
Yeah.
The trendy woman.
The trendy woman. Yeah. It's our generation. I feel like we deal with a lot of internal struggles with identity. So I feel that a lot of younger people, even younger than us, are trying to fit in because they want that type of attention.
Yeah.
And so they're losing who they are in
In the
order to
process.
gain the attention. But really, I feel like it doesn't end well, not in my opinion.
It's scary to see, like how you said, people who are even younger than us. I remember looking at pictures when I was 14.
Don't talk about that.
At 14, I looked like a total nerd. Whereas 14-year-olds you see now on social media, on TikTok and things like that, like, that's your age? You look
They
like
look
you
so
can
much
match
older.
me.
Yeah, they look so much older, and all of the manipulation I think that they're doing, it's going to cause them to age faster as well. So,
And just to tie into this, why we're on this part of the conversation, right? Vulnerable woman for me. I remember, so I always loved pageantry. I always liked, modeling, but I've always been very self-conscious of doing it. This was back in high school, like early high school. And so I would only do it at home. And I'd walk up and down in heels and I would be doing the whole thing, but I'd never really do it in public because I would say very self-conscious. And so this was one time I went to Miami and I did the Miami Fashion Week inside the mall. And people, strangers that I didn't even know, were like doing this round of applause and all these different things. And I was like, okay, so why can I not see what they see, right? Because a lot of times we try to think that we need to look like someone else, we need to do something else. And I think around that time I was trying to figure out, like, how do I, like you said, get the attention without with being still myself, but by meeting society standards. And so through pageantry, I found, because with pageantry, you need to be confident, right? You put yourself on a platform for people to judge you. So you have to find that confidence. And for me, through pageantry, I found that confidence. And so when I tell people that I was never confident before, they're like, never. And I'm like,
it's hard
start
to
somewhere,
believe that,
right?
knowing you now.
Yeah, because I am so talkative, so not shy, but there was that part of me that felt like I needed to fit into this ideology of what society claims to be beautiful or to be accepted.
yeah.
And I can say for myself, I had something similarly where it's like, like you said, you see the bodies and you see what is trending these days. And me, I'm so afraid of needles. I could never get a plastic surgery in my life. Any sort of cut, it freaks me right on out. But I remember, like, initially going to the gym and the personal trainers they had there, they would have these like little advertising plaques and show, before and afters. And the before and afters, these were drastic things. And I was like, but these girls all look the same after. And I was just like, I don't know if I want that for me, because seeing them all lined up side by side, it was just hard to tell the difference unless I looked at their face. They all had the same body. And, it's just like, my body's not quite like that. Let me just work with keeping myself healthy, getting to a point where I'm happy, because I honestly think, because it's a trend, people chase those trends and chase the thinking they're going to be happy because they fit what other people are looking for, up until we go back to like how it was in the 90s where the slim bodies were
loved it.
What was hyped, like, so I think it's all just a
preferences.
lot of temporary happiness. Now, getting to oversexuality in our actual country, you saying you have a swimwear line. How is it working with that and going out into society, having to be a businesswoman and you have to show that you're, this image of, I can handle this, I'm responsible, I'm about my business.
Take me serious.
Take me seriously.
Yeah.
But you're in swimwear all the time,
Gotcha.
right? Because you have to wear your product, you have to show it off. So how do you handle when the misconceptions come about?
Yeah, to manage that. Well, I think from a very young age, I've always been kind of like a multifaceted individual. And my mother's also promoted that with me. I did drama class and sports, and I also did, student council president, and I was over here and over here and over here. So I just continue to grow in the essence of being a multi-hyphenate. Like, I feel like being a woman is a superpower. There is absolutely nothing that we cannot do. And if we want to do it all, then I think we should do it all. So really, I haven't had any obstacles with the fact that I do several different things. So I am in corporate, and then I am, doing swimwear and have to, for the influence, push the brand in that dynamic. So I haven't I can't say that I've experienced any issues surrounding the multi-dimension of myself as a woman, but I'm sure there are people that have questions about it or that look at it and have it, but it never got to me. So who cares?
If it gets you, not your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
the problem.
yeah, I just live my life. I be my most authentic self. I know what I'm doing. I know my heart is in the right place. I know my intentions, and I'm firm in that. I'm confident in that space. So yeah, it works out.
You had mentioned earlier about the balance, right? You find that there is a balance between both. So I want to know, how do you strike that balance between both? Because I think at the same time too, sometimes, and we're gonna be honest, as women, we can possibly portray ourselves to be oversexualized too, and that can be through clothing and different things, right? Or maybe even through dance, right? We know dance is like a sensual thing, and it's all about perception, people perceive. But how do we strike that perfect balance?
So I would say it's all about what you're comfortable with and how you want to represent yourself. So our image and our reputation and everything that we put out there, it's going to have a lasting impact, long after we've decided to clean up our act.
Social media.
Certain things are, we can't archive old stuff, but people don't forget that. So really and truly, I think it takes being intentional about what you put out there, about yourself and how you carry yourself. So my mother has always ensured that in the way that I was raised, that I'm conscious about how I carry myself as a lady, So I think wearing a swimsuit doesn't mean you're not a lady. So I definitely do everything within a certain perimeter of how I want to represent myself. And if I would have any regret about it 10 years from now, if the answer is yes, then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So, thinking about those things where it's just like, okay, would I be accepting of this later down the line?
Yeah. Would my children approve of it later on?
Exactly. Oh, goodness, could you imagine? Like sitting down and just showing your mom, like, look, kids, your mom used to be really hot back in the day. I always used to wear swimwear.
You're embarrassing me now.
But the kind where it's just like, people, for example, I always post throwback photos of my family and my parents and stuff. And it's like, look, my mom was really hot back in the day, rather than it being something where it's like, gosh, I would never post this. I don't want to know about my mom. So finding that difference, I guess you could say. For me, I would have to say, like, experiencing femininity, but also keeping a business mind of it. Since I work in sales and I'm the kind of person, I dress up when I go to work. I'm always wearing heels and I'm always making sure that I just feel really good. Because I think if you're feeling good, you're going to go out there and present that to people and they're going to catch that vibe back. You also have to be strong in your femininity, but also strong in protecting your business and doing what you came to do. I didn't come to lure you into a trap. I came to sell you my business. So having the balance where, I think setting boundaries is really important.
Absolutely.
And getting that, not something where you sit down and it's just like, listen, guys, I'm only here for, but if you keep even being intentional with the kind of conversations you're allowing, or if it's a case where, for example, you've gotten advances from different people and it's just like, anyway, so as I was saying about the contract, right, having those kind of things where you have an intent and you stick with it, like you said.
You know what I do love? I do love the unassuming nature of being, quote unquote, like a pretty girl. I really enjoy that, especially in the business setting, because people would have these preconceived stereotypes of, when a woman is beautiful or if she carries herself, in a particular kind of way and she gets a lot of attention, so to speak, then they would have, these things made up in their mind, but they don't know that once they finally have a conversation with you, you completely disarm them by how intelligent you are. Yeah. I absolutely love to see the look on people's faces. It's like, oh my gosh, she's smart.
You know something.
She's not as pretty. So, but I just want to touch on something because you mentioned femininity. So what then is femininity and sensuality? What does that look like? So I don't know, I guess I can start first, right? I think femininity is really, and sensuality is really being in touch with who you are, right? Understanding who you are and not being afraid to allow that to shine out, right? Know what you want, know what you desire, and stepping in that bold confidence. But also women being that very nurturing, very soft, and being confident and exposing that, as well.
I definitely would say when you said that, I thought instantly to the softness of a woman, being willing to be soft, because we're in cases a lot where we can't be, or we're pushed into a position where we have to be very, like the aggressor, we have to be very assertive. But you can be assertive and still have that sense of gentleness, you know? But with that, we're going to go to break really quickly. And once we come back, we're going to talk some
Deep
more
dive.
with Cyprianna, all right? This message is brought to you by Island Bargains. And welcome back to Let's Get Candid. We're here with our special guest, Cyprianna Green. And we're about to jump into a topic that is a little taboo, which is sensuality versus spirituality. So, ladies, I want to know from you guys, what do you think, firstly, is sensuality? See?
I think for me, sensuality is just a woman who's in touch with what she wants, and she exudes that in confidence, right? So in order for you to be sensual, you need to know who you are, which leads you on a path of self-awareness and a self-journey of understanding who I am, right? And finding the right intentions of why I do something as opposed to why I wouldn't do something, right? And how you want to be perceived in the public space.
Okay. What about you, Cyprianna?
So sensuality, yeah, truly being one with self, right? And incorporating all of the senses. It could be like with your favorite perfume or a dance and how it makes you feel. So so how that ties to spirituality, I'm not sure. Do you mean like the barriers to such, or is there like what do you mean? Could you elaborate on the question a little bit more?
Okay. So for me, if I was to look at it, and you can take it however you want to run with it, but I would think of it more so, being that you said like self-aware and being in touch with yourself, loving yourself. I think that links to, for example, my relationship with God, right? I know that I'm made in his image. So with me loving myself and appreciating who I am, I think that links back to loving him, Yeah. But at the same time, like you said, it could also be, we're looking at the barriers of this. So sometimes when people are presenting themselves in what they would think is a sensual manner, you have people who they find themselves to be a little more spiritual than others, and they think, that's not right. You're not supposed to do it this way. This isn't the way to go. So which one you guys want to take out of that?
I think it all boils down to the heart's position, and it starts with us not judging for the most part. I think people, God gave us all free will. So who are we to take that away from an individual?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that or you shouldn't do that because we don't know their heart's position. But I do think that people can pass things off as spiritual, and then it could just, go a little bit overboard, especially with the showing of the body and all of these different things that are extremely sexualized, because we have to remember that our body is our temple, and we're basically a walking billboard as Christian women, for God, right? And so if you do have that spiritual relationship, I think your discernment should definitely guide you.
And I think to touch on that with the spirituality aspect to it is that, sometimes, or not sometimes, but different religions value different things. So like, you would have Muslims who you need to be completely covered, right? So it's these different things and people trying to figure out, so, sensuals, covered up, the Bible talks about a woman being covered. So it gets to that point where you're trying to figure out, am I disappointing God if I wear this shirt like this, or maybe should I do this? You get to that point of trying to question, am I acceptable in God's sight by the way I'm dressing or these different things, or how am I expressing myself?
I would say I agree with that. And to elaborate on something you mentioned, you said, doing certain things like, showing the body in a manner that is very sexualized. I think it goes back to, what do you know? You have to be aware there are certain things that people will see as definitely you are sexualizing yourself, right? And so being with spirituality and sensuality, you are aware of those different things, so you try not to step over the line. It is a very blurry line at times, but you try your best not to go so far where it's like, what is this?
What did I just post?
And even with looking at others, as a Christian woman, I try not to judge, and I look at things with compassion, because truly, if you see a young woman that you think is over-sexualizing herself on the internet, half naked, looking what obviously looks like she's looking for the attention of men or likes or anything like that. Compassion allows you to perhaps,
why.
look at the why. Why is she doing this? Does she feel like she needs does she feel like she needs attention? Is she not getting the right type of attention? And so I think people like that can benefit from introspection and even therapy and stuff like that, because we all struggle with things and people display it in different ways, and one of the common ways in our society is to get that attention online.
And just to add on to what you said too, I think having this sisterhood kind of communities really help women who might feel like I'm not meeting the standard, but also helping younger women to kind of understand and navigate these different things. And so that was why initially I formed the Women Code 4.0, which is about creating a community of women to nurture professional and personal growth. Because I find that everything that I do is just around professional and personal growth. How can I be a better version of myself? How can I really sit down, do that analyzation of who I am, who I'm trying to be, and how does this align, right? To this idea of who I want, because sometimes it's really hard when you do that analyzation. You're like, I did that and I didn't think that mattered up, and then you beat yourself up obviously because you feel like, are people going to remember me only for this now, right? So it came to that.
Because it is very hard to do, you'll find that people don't do it. So it can be also this avoidance of introspection, because it's a painful thing to have to look at yourself and think, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. And even if you're in therapy, do you know that there's a fact that a lot of people drop out of therapy when their problem is in their face like this? Is like, I'm not going back to therapy. Because it's hard to confront our own issues. So.
And be accountable for it too, and the role that we played in allowing it to happen.
I will say though, we should have, just as God has grace and mercy with us, we should have grace with ourselves. And life is a journey, right? Just like Christianity. Like people would probably look at me and say, hey, you sure you're a Christian? You this and that. But I think it's all a journey. It's all about the heart's position and that you're craving to be a better version of yourself every day. So as you're constantly correcting and as just the potter is molding, I'm not preaching, but so it's a process. So we ought to be easier on ourselves.
Definitely agree.
Just to touch with that, last year I found myself, I was exploring the theme, like you said, grace and mercy. And I realized that, okay, I need to extend a little bit more grace and mercy to myself, because I might be very forgiving to other people, but I need to remember too about myself and okay, you don't have to beat yourself up, right? Tomorrow's another day to make a better choice, to do a better thing, and you don't need to stay in this place. As long as you wake up with that, I want to be better, I want to do better, and really go after it, that all should, matter.
And I think that all goes back to, regardless of where you've come from, you can always find your way back. And you can always come back to a space where it's like, I am who I am, and I love that. So,
because God doesn't, the thing and the beauty of it with God is that, you can be messed up yesterday and tomorrow he still loves you the same, right? He doesn't see all of those flaws that we see. And I think we struggle really to get to that place where we are the same with ourselves and with others, where we can say, I still love you. And like you touched on the why, because some people don't always do things just out of the blue. There's always a reason behind, and we tend to not take time to understand, why did she do that? We're just like, she did it and I didn't like the way it made me feel. And it becomes that thing right there.
Yes. So I think this has been a very great discussion, ladies. And now what we're going to do, we're going to get into a little game. So
I'm scared.
If you watched the last episode, you would have known that we are the types to go and answer some questions that we haven't written ourselves. Shout out to our producers for this. And it's called What You Know About Me.
What you know about us, right?
So, Cyprianna.
Me first?
You are having the honors of picking our question for today.
So we all answer the same question?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let me just go and digging up. I'm not going to go for the one on top. What social customs do you wish would just disappear?
Oh.
And it ties very well onto the topic.
It does. Okay. So, Z, you want to tackle that one first?
I thought we were going around the book.
All right.
I picked. I can't answer first.
Okay. Let me think. Social customs. I think having these expectations of people right? And not giving people the freedom to be themselves and place them into this box. And, you know, for me growing up and with the friends that I have, I've always had the space to be who I am, but with accountability. And I feel like we should give people that space, not to say, Loren, you should be like this, you should eat this, you should do this, but to allow her to explore who she really is and to allow that to come out. To really stop placing these crazy expectations on people and then being mad when they don't meet it, because now you're not what I thought you were or who you should be, right? When we were created to be who God wants us to be, and we should be allowed to explore that and become that, as opposed to what, you know, people want us to be.
Okay, well, I agree with that. I guess it's my turn, huh? For me, I would have to say one that I wish we would get rid of is this idea that you always have to be doing something.
Oh, yes.
You know, I think, especially when the pandemic started up, it was this idea of hustle, hustle, hustle. You've got to break from work, hustle, 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 learn a new skill, do this, do this, do. And it's like, sometimes you just need to be still. And I think embracing the idea of sitting and just reflecting, and it doesn't even have to be introspection, but looking back on what you've been through, what we've seen in the world, and just being still and listening to God.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
Just getting back to
your roots.
Yeah, to your roots and to what keeps you grounded. You know, because it's not always supposed to be on go. I refuse to believe that this whole hustle hard mentality means that there is no time for you to actually turn off and just relax.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm. So for me, this is one that I've been thinking about for a while, actually. So I think it's the perfect time to raise this. The social custom that I wish would go away was that we should always be okay. That is a social custom, in my opinion, because even when someone picks up the phone and their intention is to ask me a question, they say, "Hey, Jaleesa, how you doing? You think you could do this and such for me?" They didn't wait until I responded to how am I doing. So it's always an assumption, or you always have to assume that people are fine. And I think it's a social custom for people to always be okay, and especially men. Men are not allowed to not be okay. And, you know, even if they have certain emotions, they're not allowed to express that, like sadness or hurt. So I think that's a social custom that definitely needs to disappear, because we as humans, we have several different emotions, and emotions come from somewhere and they're valuable, you know? So it's okay to not be okay. And I just want to take this opportunity to, you know, raise awareness in our community and in the Black community to mental health and seeking, you know, help when it's necessary, because a lot of people are uncomfortable with saying, I may be depressed.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we are losing young people all the time to suicide. So it's okay not to be okay. And it's also okay to get help. And there's nothing wrong with you, because we all need it sometime.
And just to touch on what you said too, because I watched this sermon, and I think it was with Christian Kane, and she said something about along the lines of, you know, we have these different emotions. We need to explore them. A lot of times we're like, I don't want to be angry. So we say like, in 2 minutes, I need to stop being angry. But we don't give ourselves enough time to explore. Why was I angry? What triggered me? And really go through that. Yeah. And just to add on to the part of being okay, right? It is a custom, right? I say, hey, Loren, how are you doing? And we expect to say, okay, and we move on.
Yeah.
And if she starts to unpack, it's like,
and then it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't ask that. Why is she telling me this? You know, it's good. You just expect people to be okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes people need that, where you ask, how are you doing? And they're just able to say, you know, listen, it's been a hard day.
They need
and
the real question. They don't need the generic, how you doing, just to say it.
And that one conversation can help, you know? So with that, ladies, I have to say.
Say one more. And I promise I'm going to wrap up after this. But just going to the part where we have friends too, right? And sometimes realizing that before we start to offload onto our friends our problems, because people are going through their own things, we need to really find out how they're doing. Can they take this from me right now? And then knowing that, okay, maybe not today, maybe not right now. And I can come back to it, and really just trying to be there for them as opposed to that.
Absolutely.
So definitely, ladies, I think this was such a great discussion and such a great question. So guys, we're going to come right back after this break. Don't you go anywhere.
This message is brought to you by Long Bay Express.
And welcome back to Let's Get Candid. We've had such a great conversation today, ladies. So I want to know, how do you guys feel about everything we discussed? We went across so many different topics. Cyprianna, how about you?
I thought the conversation today was incredible. I think we touched on a lot of key points that our generation and the times that we live in definitely needed to hear as we extracted it here today in organic. It naturally flowed. I absolutely loved it.
Perfect.
And how about you, Z?
So I would definitely say the conversation was really good and enlightening, because we do need to talk about it, right? Because there is a fine line between oversexualization and femininity, and allow women to feel okay in their skins without, this pressure of expectations and what I need to meet, and just loving yourself, and that's the way God has made you.
I think for me, this conversation, definitely my biggest takeaway from it is that we can be feminine, we can be sensual, and still be respectful to ourselves, still be respectful to whatever our belief systems are, and go about embracing your whole self, which I think is really important, because it's hard to do. It means getting vulnerable and being true to who you are.
Yeah, so definitely. So thank you so much for watching this episode with us. We had an amazing time. Remember, Let's Get Candid is about having those uncomfortable conversations that we tend to shy away from in our society, but we desperately need to have. And it's a comfortable, very relaxing space, right? We're all in our living room, think of it like that. Right? Just having a really great conversation about things that matters most, and we want to shine more light on. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you all again, and we hope to see some of you sitting here with us and having an amazing conversation.
Yeah, and I also want to say thank you so much to Cyprianna for coming
being
in.
here. Thank you so
for
much.
inviting me.
Yes,
it was
it's
a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It really was. Thank
The
you.
conversations and everything, I think, was so great, and I hope that whoever watches this, they get something out of it that they're able to grow from. Because
so too.
we spoke before about just making progress with yourself and having grace. So just going forward, I think hopefully someone gets something out of it. Right.
So I'm your host, Mary, but definitely call me Ziggy.
I am Loren, but you can call me Lori. And
And the lovely.
Bye-bye from Cyprianna.
Bye.
thanks, guys.